Welcome to Peacevision. We are that portal for positive change, and part of what's positive is what we put in our body. And we want to welcome our environmental reporter, Erik from the West Coast. Erik, how are you?
Hey, good. How's everybody doing?
Better than we deserve. Um, truly. Um, One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is something that you brought to my attention called fish fraud. What is fish fraud and how is it affecting us?
Gotcha. Now, fish fraud is an amazing topic, and it's kind of a hidden topic, but it's something that affects our health and our environment around us, which I seem to find are always basically interlinked. Fish fraud, what we're finding is they did a lot of recent studies through DNA, and we're finding that around 70% of the fish that's being served is mislabeled. Now, at first, that might not seem like a big deal to people, mislabeled fish, but we'll talk a little bit about it, but there are some very dangerous consequences especially when they're taking fish from warm water climates and then selling them to cold water areas where the chefs are familiar with cold water fish. They think that they're cooking a cold water fish instead of a warm water fish, and a lot of neurotoxins can actually be released, causing brain damage, learning disabilities, and other factors. So there's an unintended consequence to our health there. The other issue that we have is a lot of the fish that they are selling are bycatch, which is extremely destructive to the worldwide ecosystem. And a lot of people are very familiar. Bycatch are the animals that are caught in the giant nets out there. They're not intended to be caught, but once they get caught, they now have to find a value for those. So they will sell them with whatever fish it looks like.
Well, what I'm always interested in is okay, that's a bummer, but what can we do about it? What resources do we have and how can we protect ourselves?
Gotcha. That's a great question. And it again, it's a big danger because we are being fed we don't even know what. Now there are a lot of ways that you can check. There if you Google the different websites, and I tend to Google them with an eco review in the title, and you can check each individual restaurant, see what they're serving, see if they can provide sources that are credible. And a lot of them have been checked. There's actually, and if you have suspicions, there's amazingly enough, there's actually independent testing labs. There's one in Florida that's one of the best ones, honestly, that you can send a sample to get back your result. And it's about, under $100, I believe, for the DNA sample. So what we find is a lot of citizens that are familiar with fish, mostly fishermen, look at the fish and say, that doesn't seem right. And they will then take these samples for DNA testing. And, like I said, we're finding that most of them are being mislabeled. And a lot of the very popular ones are done for like fish and chips, for example. That's sort of a familiar sounding, it's cod. Well, it's actually not cod. The cod fisheries basically collapsed a long time ago. So what are you eating? And that is the big question.
Wow, scary stuff. But there's also some practical things. For instance, farm raised salmon, I personally will not eat, but I always ask when is the real deal coming in? And they'll tell me well that it's going to be in later this month or whatever the season is. What are some of the issues with quote unquote farm raised products with fish?
Farm raised products have a lot of toxins and a lot of issues. They're all so crammed together that they tend to pass on different viruses and problems to each other. And what happens is they're not kept in the right environments. And it's once again, it's sort of like they're playing around with nature. And when they start doing that, these viruses run rampant in there. And we saw the issue in Alaska where the aquaculture, the nets broke, and suddenly all these genetic weird salmon that had all these viruses went in and infected all the natural salmon populations too. So it's not just contained within the aquaculture itself, but 100% farm-raised fish, people should be very cautious of. I would recommend to not eat it because they don't have to pass the same safety standards that the fish would if it was fresh caught or natural caught. So there's a big difference there, and people need to be very careful. There's a lot of debate over tilapia being a fish that is basically just farm-raised, genetically created to pass on sort of a need for people to have for whitefish. There's you really want to try to avoid those. And like you said, especially with salmon, because, you know, in the aquaculture, salmon, what they'll do is actually inject dyes to make the salmon appear pink, because the natural color of these aquaculture raised salmon is pure white, because they're not having the natural life they're supposed to. They're not eating krill like they're supposed to, which gives them the pink color. They're not doing anything by nature they're supposed to, and instead they're being fed weird food like corn and other weird stuff that, you know, their bodies react to, and they get zoonotic disease just the same as wet markets. And, you know, that infection and those diseases can pass on to multiple fish in the area and lots of people that live in the area.
So a lot of impact not only on ourselves, but also on the environment as well. So good stuff. Erik, we want to have you back, and we want to talk about some things going on in the Amazon next. And we're excited, and thank you again for all the great information that you bring to us. We love having you on our Peacevision team, and you rock, brother.
Thank you, John. Like I said, I always appreciate a chance to get to talk about these topics with everybody. You know, it's always important that you give us a voice, and I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Peace.